In this video, we are going to continue our work simplifying rational expressions. Remember, we can think of a rational expression as just a fancy fraction. So number 4 asks us to simplify 1 minus x over x minus x squared. So remember that in order to simplify or to cancel common things in common, you have to factor first. So be careful that you don't think that you can just jump in and start canceling x's. So the first step is to factor. So when I look at my numerator, there's nothing to factor. So I'm just going to write it on the bottom in the numerator space. And then I'm going to look at the denominator and ask myself, how would I factor this? Well, it's 2 terms, so the only way that you can factor 2 terms right now is that you can factor using a GCF or the difference of squares. So when you look at it, what do you see? I see a GCF. Okay, it's not the difference of squares because the first x doesn't have an even power. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out the x, which means I'm dividing each term by x. So in the first term, when you divide x by x, that leaves you with 1. And then in the second term, 2 x's take away 1, leaves you with minus x. So I'm going to put that back into my fraction. So I have in my denominator x times 1 minus x. Now that it's factored, I'm ready to do my canceling. Both the numerator and the denominator share a 1 minus x, so that cancels. And remember, when they cancel as ones because you're dividing something by itself, which is a whole, which means 1. So what I really have for my simplified fraction is 1 in the numerator over x. And remember, I have to have that 1 there in order to keep the x in the denominator spot. Number 2, we have x plus 4 over x. So when I look at my numerator, it's x plus 4, it can't be canceled. And then when I look at, it can't be factored. And then when I look at my denominator, it's just x, which can't be factored. And then I'd like to see, do I have any common factors? I do not. All right, it would be so tempting to want to cancel those x's, but you can't. You can only cancel common factors. And that x plus 4 is in a unit, so you can't break up that unit and cancel the x's. So this one is already simplified. We can't do anything to it. And number 6, we have 3 minus x over x minus 3. So this one's kind of special. I'm going to show you the long way to go about this, and then I'm going to show you a kind of a different way I think about it. So if I were to rewrite the numerator so that the x was in front, it would look like this. Negative x and then a positive 3. But we don't really like having a negative in front of a first term if you're factoring. We always tell you to factor it out if it's in the first term. So if I were to take negative 1 and divide each term by negative 1, the negative divided by the negative in the first term would leave me with a positive x, and 3 divided by negative 1 is a minus 3. So if I rewrite that numerator as negative 1 times x minus 3, and then there's nothing to do with my denominator, so I'm just going to keep it as the unit x minus 3. Now I can see that these two, they both share a common factor, the numerator and the denominator of x minus 3, so I can cancel that, and I'm left with negative 1. Okay, so that's how it happens mathematically. When I look at this fraction, I've kind of taught myself, or I've looked at it in this way, and it's kind of silly, but I think about this being fraternal twins. So identical twins look like the x minus 3s. Everything's the same. The x is positive, the negative, then we have a negative 3 in the numerator. And in the denominator, the x is positive and the 3 is negative. These are identical twins. They look exactly the same. But before I factored out the -1, I would have called these fraternal twins. So fraternal twins often look very similar if they're the same sex. I have boy-girl twins, so they don't look super similar, but fraternal twins often, if they're the same sex, really look alike. And you can see that they're siblings, but you can definitely tell one from the other. Where identical twins, sometimes you don't know which twin you're talking to. So these are fraternal twins, meaning they look a lot alike, but they're not exactly the same. So the 3 here in the numerator is positive, and the x is negative. But in the denominator, it's the reverse. The x is positive, and the 3 is negative. So the only thing that's changing here is that a negative is in a different spot. So whenever I see fraternal twins, they look very similar, but their signs are flipped. Then I know that fraternal twins always simplify to a -1. So I don't do all the scratch work off to the side. There's nothing wrong with doing the scratch work, but sometimes it can be time consuming. So let me just show you another set of fraternal twins. So if you had something like this, 12 minus 5x over 5x minus 12. All right, so before you jump into it, check your signs. All right, in the numerator, the 12 is positive. In the denominator, the 12 is negative. Those are opposite. And in the numerator, the 5x is negative, and in the bottom, it's positive. They're opposites. So remember, when they're opposites, this just reduces to a -1. All right, so that's kind of my little shortcut for fraternal twins. Not really a shortcut, but just a faster way to look at it. Okay, so again, when you're simplifying rational expressions, you've got to remember it is factor, then cancel.